Hello and welcome back to From the Top. This is our Metacritic Best Games of All Time Countdown podcast. I'm Michael. I'm here with Sean and Steve, and this episode we're looking at Perfect Dark. And I think you'll find that that's a pitch perfect impression of Joanna Dark.
Inspired by Joan of Arc.
Man, I'm not going to lie. I mean, this is maybe getting ahead a bit, but I skipped all the cutscenes in this game. So I don't know any of the lore.
You're probably after skipping the best parts of this game, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that anyway. This is a first-person shooter developed by Rare and released on the Nintendo 64 in the year of our Lord 2000. And yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll get into it, but before, you know, I like my little anecdotes. I'd like to give you a little anecdote I have about Perfect Dark. So, like 6 months ago, I was out in a gaming bar, which seems to be a thing that's become more popular nowadays, in London, called Four Quarters. And yeah, I was with you, Sean.
Oh, cool.
You were there. You were wearing your green jumper. But in the men's bathroom, they had a load of old gaming magazine reviews and previews stuck to the wall. And one of them was Perfect Dark. So I took a picture of it. It's not a weird thing to take a picture in a bathroom. That's completely normal. This is from a preview of the game. I'm going to read you out a little excerpt. This is from a preview of the game. So
I think I remember this.
Yeah, before it was released. And I don't know the name of the magazine, annoyingly, but it's like one of those, you know, late 90s, early 90s gaming magazines. And you can definitely tell by the language from it. But here it is, our preview of Perfect Dark. Meet Joanna Dark, a girl we reckon could teach Lara Croft a thing or seven. 00, that is. Great joke to start off with. Mind you, she maybe only looks this good since the game is set in the year 2023. No way. Where you can buy the perfect body. Joanna is a field operative investigating a conspiracy theory surrounding the Datadyne Corporation. Her codename for this mission is Perfect Dark. Awesome or what?
Does it actually say awesome or what?
Awesome or what? Yeah, I'll put a picture up with the video of this podcast, which you can find on the cardboard box item on YouTube.
These journalists were not paid enough.
I know, yeah. That's the level of wisecrackery that's happening there and just pure journalistic wit. So let's get into the game. Sarah, Steve, what did you think of Perfect Dark?
That's all staying.
Okay, so I'll tell you how I felt about Perfect Dark.
Wow.
I felt hopeful. So, as you guys know, I am currently looking for a new job. And this has put me into a situation where I'm feeling like, you know, I'm feeling kind of a bit of self-doubt, you know, imposter syndrome, thinking like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a job. You know, I'm feeling pretty nervous. And like, that kind of thing has been hanging over me a lot. But when I see a game like this in the top 20 games of Metacritic, I know anything is possible.
Yeah, it's
how this game, I fucking hate it.
Oh my god. What? Strong words.
Oh my god. So yeah, this what indeed? Is,
yeah, it didn't yeah, I think to sum up your very passionate and eloquent speech there, Steve, this one has aged very badly.
Yeah, it's, oh god, like, I mean, it's so ironic it's called Perfect, like, I mean, because that just leaves the door wide open. It's just like, there's plenty of good points about this we can say, but like, my main impression was I never want to play this again. And just to hammer that point home, like, do you guys remember a few weeks ago I told you that my N64 broke and I couldn't play it anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lie. I just didn't want to play it.
Okay, that's fair.
I had visions of like smoke coming out of your N64.
The game was so bad, the N64 killed itself rather than play it anymore.
How about you, Sean? How did you feel about it?
I mean, you could have just been honest, Steve, and said you didn't want to play it anymore. Like, I mean, I was totally upfront saying I'm not finishing this game. But then again, that's not new for me, is it? Ooh, I just burned myself. Anyway,
self-immolation here, man.
I've got one question when it comes to this game. How is this the first-person shooter game on the fucking list?
Yeah,
I know,
that is
man.
insane.
It's above Half-Life, Deus Ex.
Like, I mean, I'm even thinking of like games of the time, like
Quake, Doom.
Quake,
Yeah.
Metroid Prime, which is coming up next on the podcast. Wait, what was the other one I was thinking of? GoldenEye. It's ahead of that. And now I've never played GoldenEye, but I know it's like got a huge following and it's like lauded. And apparently, this game was like heavily inspired by it.
Well,
So-
it's almost a sequel to it in a way. Yeah.
So
And just actually on that point, and I think Michael, you'll probably agree with me on this. Like we've played GoldenEye before, and like that also hasn't aged that well.
Yeah, I'd agree on that one. Yeah.
We'll get to that because it's actually pretty high. We'll probably be talking about it relatively soon. But like both of these games, and it might just be like a carryover of being on the N64, like because that's a console that I don't think was really built for first-person shooters, to be honest with you.
No, the controller itself is just like, so like trying to play GoldenEye on an N64 controller is like, I guess it became such a big deal because there was nothing else out there like it. Doing the like the local multiplayer is the thing that really catapulted GoldenEye into like the esteem it's in, which is so weird. This is getting into GoldenEye a bit too much, but that's something the developers added without permission over like one night, just when the game was about to be shipped. They just threw in the multiplayer mode like at the end.
Man, and nowadays it's like, please can we have couch multiplayer in games? And like, we can't do it for technical reasons.
Yeah, the Halo guys, Halo Infinite, they promised it for so many years, and then they're like, no, we just can't make it work. And it's like, why?
Then there was a glitch you could do to make it work or something. It's almost like it was there, but for some reason they didn't activate it because there was people like doing glitches to enable it.
Oh wow!
But, yeah,
okay.
But I think they patched that. Then I'm not sure.
Maybe they wanted to make people pay for it.
You never know.
Microsoft. But yeah, let's dig into Perfect Dark and the reasons it doesn't work. For me, the number one thing is the controls and the general feeling and movement of the game is extremely floaty.
Yeah.
Like there's no
jump button.
There's no jump button, yeah, well observed, but this isn't Crash Bandicoot, but there's no, like, precision is very hard in this game. There's like several, like you get a sniper rifle in some levels and it's like the worst handling sniper rifle
Oh my
ever.
God, it's so annoying.
And yeah, just like it has that, the classic GoldenEye rare sort of auto aim. That like you basically just point in the general direction of the guys and you're gonna hit them, basically. And that, like, there is a place for that. Like, I quite liked some of the Time Splitter games, which came
huge,
after these and were made. They're developed by Free Radical, but Free Radical was made up of ex-members of Rare who would have worked on GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. But I think they really refined it a bit better in those games.
That was like PS2 gen as well. Anyway,
yeah, exactly. So they'd moved on a bit. So I guess they were just finding their feet with it. But it doesn't feel, it feels like you're just running around levels and there's some guys getting in the way, shooting you occasionally, rather than it being like a firefight or anything like that.
Yeah, it's also not that responsive, actually. Like, it's because, you know, most first-person shooters like are pretty fast-paced, but because of the floaty nature of this, everything moves a little bit slower and things are still quite imprecise. And it's just really, really frustrating getting hit by things when, like, you know, you're just trying to focus the crosshairs on one guy in front of you. And that's another thing, like, a lot of because this is an older game, and this is just like typical of a lot of older games, a lot of enemies just kind of spawn out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And like some place that you think like is completely clear, someone will just spawn and like they'll start shooting you from the side, which is really frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, a first-person shooter's got to live and die on its shooting mechanics, and this is where it falls down, really, when it just becomes like it's more of a dodging around and just making sure you don't get hit. But like you were saying, Steve, the enemies are pretty slow as well. Like, well, the whole thing feels slow, but like you round the corner and there's a guy there and he like fumbles for his gun and moves around, and like it's impressive, the animations. Like, to give it its due, the animations look great. Like when you shoot a guy, the way he crumples down and holds his arm and all that sort of stuff looks great, but it does lead to it just being like a boring shooting experience, really.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that like the way they like achieved, so this is one of the first games that started using motion capture apparently, and the way they simulated this was like when someone was getting shot, they'd have someone with a long stick just poking them in the areas that they were supposed to get shot in. And I just love the idea of someone like, right, going into work now, going to get poked in the head, in the arm, in the arse, like for the next like 3 hours. Wait, it's a standard day-to-day job.
Yeah, it looks cool, and I can imagine people being blown away by the look of the animations. But yeah, just it leads to it being like, it's incredibly. I don't think I ever died from being shot too much in this game. No. Every game over I had was I failed an objective.
Yeah, same.
Which will bring us into the sort of objective system in the game.
Now, I liked this, but it was badly implemented.
I think I agree with you on that. The fact that like they let you into a level and there's certain things you have to do in there which progress it is a very simple way of putting it, but I don't hate that on paper. And I think like just from memory in GoldenEye, it sort of worked a bit better, and it's something they used in the Time Splitter games as well, and they sort of refined it a bit more by then, and things made a bit more sense. But here it was just, especially the fact that like you have to read through the objectives at the beginning. There's no, like, if you just went into this level, into each level and didn't read up on what you had to do, you'd be completely clueless.
Well, you can pull those up though in the game. You
can read them, but like that's just like, I'm going to stop and like read up the game manual on this before I go into a level. Like it should be more intuitive than that, I feel.
Side note on that, this was really, really difficult for me because while the cutscenes were in English, all of those like objectives were in Japanese. That made it, there was a good few times where I was just like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing.
You're playing on hard mode.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But actually, and good thing you bring up hard mode, because like specifically what I'm talking about is the way they implement difficulty in this is actually really interesting. And I'd like for like more games to do this. Like where, so if you want to play like, when you clear the game, apparently, you get like the harder difficulties, and rather than just having the enemies be more of a bullet sponge, you just get additional objectives, and I think more enemies spawn in like the longer you're in the level, that kind of thing, which is really, really interesting. Like, I love it when games like have a really interesting approach to difficulty like that. It reminds me of did either of you ever play, I think Michael, you've played the Curse of Monkey Island before, haven't you?
Yeah,
I have.
So that's a really, really interesting example of a point-and-click adventure that has a difficulty setting where you can play like in hard mode, and it just has extra puzzles. And this is kind of similar in that way. And like, I feel like that really, really works if it wasn't for the fact, as you said, Michael, this lives or dies on the control scheme, and by God, does this die.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, though. I think it adds replayability to the levels, and it's just like my thought on it is that it was really close to having an interesting gameplay loop, because when there was missions that I kept failing over and over, one thing I found is once I'd figured out like how to do the first two objectives, but I kept like failing the last one, I could really quickly get through the level and complete the first two objectives once I knew what to do. And that leads to like almost a speed running sort of mentality of, okay, I'm after failing the third objective again. How can I as quickly as possible, get through the first two? Yeah. So you could really, like, once you knew where to go on the level and what exactly you needed to do, you could quickly zip around and do that. And that's a really interesting gameplay loop. It almost reminds me of like something like Hotline Miami or something, where, okay, I can really quickly get through these first two levels of the building, but to get me back to the place where I died. Once you've gone through the level a few times, you develop a rhythm and you can finally get into it. But the thing that stops that being an interesting gameplay loop here is that you have to manually abort the mission when you fail an objective. So they'll let you keep running around the level, doing whatever you want, but it'll just say abort mission. And then you have to manually go into the menu and do it. And then you have to go to another menu and select to replay the mission. It doesn't instantly put you back in. If they had a system instead where you got a warning that flashed up saying, oh, the agent died who you were meant to protect, restart level, and it was one instant button press and then you were put back to the start, it'd be way better because you could get into a rhythm of it then and start like really quickly getting through the level. But this, it makes it stodgy, and it makes you more frustrated when you have to, okay, I have to go through this menu and do this. Like, it's not a huge wait time, but it would have been way better if it was a, like, again, Hotline Miami style instant restart.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I just going back to what you were saying, Steve, about like some of it being in ways it's slow, but I found like I was flying through levels because like there's not really any skill, I feel, when it comes to like aiming, like not even aiming your gun. Like I was really annoyed, like the way you aim in it really pissed me off. I'm not into that at all. I know it was a thing at the time, but so I was mostly just like strafing, I guess. Yeah. Just like getting my character's crosshairs, you know, pointed at the enemy and then shooting. So like I found I was just kind of like flying. I guess it was when I realized where I need to go, I was just like flooring through it, and like enemies took, like, I was playing on just agent difficulty, I guess, the lowest one. So it was like 2 bullets to kill someone, do you know? So yeah, I just found like I flew through it, but there was no skill level there. The hardest part for me was figuring out where or what I needed to do, because the objectives were a bit vague sometimes. They didn't tell you exactly where you need to go for something, do you know? I think like on the second or third level, where you're at that kind of like condo place by the sea. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I had to find and rescue somebody there. Couldn't find them for the life of me. I was going all over the place. I was like, have I soft locked the game or something? Like, I didn't know what was going on. I think that's a constant difficulty in the game, is just figuring out. Like, one thing I found is, this comes in more in the later levels, but you have to find a button to press. So you have to deactivate the shields or something like that. I know exactly what you're going to say. Like, there's no like button that looks obviously like a button. There's all these consoles that you can interact with, and they all look the exact same. So I have to just go around pressing the action button against everything that looks like it may activate something until I figure out which brown square is the one I'm meant to fucking press on. But what I thought you were going to say, on 2 different levels, I failed the mission myself by setting off the alarm. Because like, they have consoles on the wall that's for the alarm, but they also look like these other consoles you have to press, and I was just going up and pressing the alarm button, and it was like, mission failed, you've alerted the whatever. So I was like, fuck's sake. Like, I don't know if that's a distance thing, like as in us being so distant in time from when it released. Like, at the time were people like, oh, this is fine, I can tell what is meant to be a button, but the graphics look so dated to us now that everything looks the same.
I don't think it is, though, because like, I remember I played do you remember Star Wars Dark Forces? That like, yeah, I played that, and like, everything it's still quite murky, but like those it's again the objective layout, the idea of like, you have to do these objectives, they're deliberately vague, you know, like it's when you're, for games that like are this retro, I think it was too ahead of its time, this game. Because like, the main thing I gathered from this is, because like, there's parts of this I really like. There's the level near the start where you're like on the streets, and it's kind of given that Blade Runner vibe. Do you remember that bit? Yeah, Chicago. I really liked that level actually as well. Same. Yeah. That was my favorite level by far. Like, and main thing I came out of that thinking was, Jesus, I should really give Deus Ex another shout. Yeah. Or I should like really give Half-Life another go. Yeah, like, while I was playing it, I was like, I'm really enjoying this. It's reminding me of other games that I was a little impatient with, but after playing this, I feel like I would have a lot more patience with, because it's all down to like the mechanics of the game, I think. Although, if we get into the story and the characters, I've got a few things about that I wouldn't mind getting off my chest as well. Well, yeah, let's have a look at that. I know you skipped a load of cutscenes, Sean, and that's fair. I think, yeah, just my thoughts on it. The
The storyline's ridiculous and stupid and just really convoluted as well. And like, you mightn't have got to this section, but eventually you get a sidekick who's an alien called Elvis. And
I didn't get that
he's
far.
a really annoying voice. And in the last level, he puts on like Stars and Stripes American vest sort of thing. And you're like, it's really weird if you take a step back and think about it, because like, I think the last level is something like you go to an alien's world and to some religious site that this alien has, and you destroy all their artifacts. So you're like a secret agent going in with this guy wearing an American flag, and you're going to destroy these other people's religious artifacts.
Jesus.
For fucking, I don't know what they did to us, but like maybe they have oil on that planet or some shit like that. But like, oh, and the voice acting is horrible as well. Like,
actually, you've put your finger on something now, and I want to come back to this before after I make this point, but like this could actually very easily be seen as like American propaganda in like a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I mean, very obviously in the character of Elvis specifically. But before we go into that, do you know what like this weirdly made me think of is so Metal Gear Solid, which is where like our name kind of comes from, for like the cardboard box item, just for anyone who didn't know that. Like we've looked at that before, and like that's a game where I remember we've heard this before somewhere. I can't remember where. That take the game Metal Gear Solid and take away all the like the mind control, the genes manipulation, and all the supernatural stuff, and you have a very basic military shooter. But you need all those like random things mixed in there to make it what it is.
Yeah.
Project Dark kind of seems like it's doing something similar.
Perfect.
You've got a really basic. What's perfect?
No, you called it Project Dark, which is a more apt name, I think. But yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
But like, like they've got like a very basic military shooter or spy shooter kind of thing, very similar to like James Bond. But then they've just thrown fucking, you know what? Let's throw aliens in there to make it interesting. But it's just it falls flat in its face. In my opinion,
it's so funny because you mentioned Deus Ex, and like Deus Ex sort of did that as well in a way, but they did it in a way better way. They sort of, because like Deus Ex is all about conspiracy theories and espionage stuff, but the tone of it is a lot more. It's grounded in some ways. It's silly in its own way, but yeah. The tone in Perfect Dark is just all over the place. Like, and I found Joanna pretty annoying as well. Like, it's maybe it's the posh English accent. I think it's like a very fucking obvious attempt to make another Lara Croft style character. And
yeah, well, I mean, you had it in your preview already, like, so you know,
she could keep
a thing or 7,
a thing.
007. That is.
Oh my God, we'll never, anything we say today will never reach the heights of those game journalists. One like minor annoyance I had, I don't know if you came up against this, but again, it ties into the objectives and the sort of gameplay loop of that, is when it wanted you to use any of your gadgets, it really didn't spell that out well.
No way, yeah. Totally.
There was one level early in the game where you're meant to hack a door open.
The safe thing.
I can't remember exactly what it is. But they're saying, oh, you need a code. You need a code to get into the store or whatever it is. So I spent ages just going back and forth in the level, looking for a code, like killing every enemy and seeing if they drop like a key card or something. But you had to use your hacking tool, which is called a data link. And it doesn't look like anything. There's no indication that this, I probably had to go and read a description of it and then figure it out from that.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, the game is just so unintuitive.
I don't know if that's the same, because I played that level last night where you're trying to hack into a safe, basically. But of course I skipped the cutscene, so I didn't know I was supposed to do that. But I got to the safe door, and then over the radio, the guy, whoever he is, he just said, oh, the decoding's going to take a bit longer or something. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I have to come back to this later or something. So I went off and realized there's nothing else I could do. So I was like, no, surely I have to do something. Came back, it said doors locked. And then there was like a thing on the wall as well. That was like, this door's locked. So I was like, what am I doing wrong here? I have to do. So then I realized, oh, I've got a fucking decoder thing with me. So then I like selected that, and then that instantly like went on the button, and then I had to wait like a minute. But yeah, it was just, it doesn't really tell you properly what to do.
No, it's very bad at giving player, and like maybe we're just soft modern gamers who are used to having like objective markers and all that.
Probably
sort of
a bit
stuff.
of that as well, I'd say.
But like, yeah, it's definitely from that period of they drop you in a level and start like, figure it out yourselves, lads.
Yeah,
we're not here to coddle
But I
you.
think this is the transition period, though, you know, because like so many games before this, like were very simplistic in nature. Like you get like Doom and Quake and all that, and it's just kill all the monsters. That's all you gotta do. Just kill all the monsters.
Find
and you're
a
done.
green
like,
key card or something like that.
yeah, simple stuff. And like, you know, obviously things got more advanced later on, but like they had to start somewhere in terms of like, here are complex objectives. But then as they went on, they got better and better at explaining them. But this is just like one of those times when they expected, I think, just a bit too much from people, because oh my god, there was one bit that I don't know if you got to it, but there's a bit where you have to like you have to bring a bomb to a
I was
wall.
just about to talk about that. Yeah.
And like the wall has like, it says, oh yeah, the wall that has a crack in it has this tiny crack
Yes.
that is so easy to miss. And like I was, for ages, I was looking everywhere for where I was supposed to go to blow it. Like, what am I supposed to use this bomb for? Like, again, the objectives were vague because half of them were in Japanese. So it was, what the hell? Like, I mean, that was the real struggle. That was the real perfect arc. The real perfect arc starts here.
The perfect dark was inside us all along.
Perfect Dark Souls.
That level was particularly, I think it's the Area 51 level. It was particularly annoying because like it's sort of like a companion mission because you have to ferry this box of explosives around, but like talking about floaty controls, like it's literally a box floating, so if you push it, it just flies off in a direction, and you're like, I hope nobody shoots that because I'll just fucking have to restart the level. But yeah, that sort of stuff in general really annoyed. And like as I was playing through it, I obviously wasn't enjoying it that much, but I was trying to put myself into the shoes of someone playing it at the time. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Like some of the levels are pretty well designed in terms of their layout, and there's the occasional set piece I like. Like at the beginning of that villa level, they drop you in, and the first thing you have to do after the cutscene is
snipe the three guys, isn't it?
Snipe a load of enemies and to protect someone who's down on the ground. And that as a set piece by itself is really cool, and like it was an interesting way to start the level. But it was really undermined by the fact that the sniper controls are so bad, and basically any of the precise aiming stuff was really bad. Which, you know, is sort of a death sentence for any first-person shooter game.
Yeah, and it really doesn't help that, like, again, bringing it back to just the characters who are like all really unlikable. The story is nonsensical. Like, all the really interesting bits are the technical things that they're doing that like are really new. But you know, when you couple that with the actual controls, it's like it's
far from perfect.
It's far from perfect dark.
The only one saving grace I'll say, for just to bring it back to like the story presentation, is the unintentionally hilarious cutscenes that occasionally come up. Sorry you skipped out on probably the best part of the game, Sean.
I watched one of them last night, and it was it must have been the first one I watched because I realised that the lips don't move. It's just their head looking menacingly at each other. But yeah,
two that come to mind is at the beginning of like a snowy level, Joanna like gets into the level. She does a really awkward forward roll and then pauses and shoots a guy who falls down in front of his friend who doesn't react at all. I love that shit. And there's another one later on when there's some big twist, and there's a confrontation between two of the bad guys, and one of them says to the other, just try it, you Scandinavian freak, and then he transforms into a dinosaur. Yeah.
Oh, I saw that bitch. Yeah. That was amazing.
But yeah, like obviously I don't think these cutscenes were meant to be funny in that way.
Yeah.
And there's this silly sensibility throughout the game, but I'd never call it intentionally humorous.
The only exception is, I think, supposed to be Elvis, and like he's the Jar Jar Binks of this game.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly what he is. So yeah, it's surreal to me that this is the highest rated first person shooter.
I don't understand that. I really, really don't. It blows my mind because there's so many other better like games out there. But
have any of you? Did any of you like? Have you looked up kind of like critical reviews of when it came out and stuff? Like, what were people saying?
This sort of maybe brings us on to, do we feel it deserves its place in the list? But before, no, but like we can talk around that anyway as well. And
no, I was just going to say, obviously it's not, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I think everyone knows what we're going to say. But I personally, so this is at 16 on the list of greatest games of all time, top 20, like Steve mentioned. I think it's sort of a hangover from GoldenEye because this was Rare's next game. Very similar because it's like an espionage first-person shooter. The format of the objectives and all, very similar to GoldenEye. And GoldenEye was absolutely massive. Like it was the game of that year. Like in a lot, like for all its flaws, it was a landmark first-person shooter, and it definitely led to, you know, the more story-led first-person shooters that came after it. I think it was critics sort of, you know, expecting something very good from...
latching onto anything that was like GoldenEye-esque.
Yeah, exactly. And like maybe, you know, the main thing, the sort of crux of our problem with the game is that it hasn't aged well. Yeah. So maybe at the time, since they didn't know any better, critics thought this is like a new pinnacle of interactive storytelling and all like that. And that's sort of reflected in the reviews at the time, just like being amazed at the graphics and the presentation and the atmosphere. Like occasionally it does have amazing atmosphere. Like Steve said, the Chicago level is...
That's really great. Good, really good.
Like the rain-soaked streets and the neon signs, and like the score is actually pretty good throughout the game, I have to say. It doesn't have anything on the GoldenEye score. That pause menu music is fucking sick. Play a bit of an editor, just a second. That'll do. Thank you. But yeah, in terms of, let's just talk about it. Does it deserve its place in this list? I think absolutely not. I think it's of its time.
Yeah, but I think that's one good point you hit on is, I think, we have to take a step back with all these games and like think about how they were received at the time.
Of course, yeah.
Because that's basically where they got the score they have from, you know. I still don't think it deserves to be up there with that in mind. At least that high up, you know.
It's the GoldenEye effect. It's just basking in the glow of that.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is I can step back and kind of see, you know, why it was lauded at the time, perhaps, with what else was available. Do you know what I mean? But it definitely hasn't aged well. And I think, like, even back then, I would have said Doom is a way better first-person shooter than this. Yeah. Do you know?
I guess games journalists and games in general had been living in Doom world for like
a few years,
fucking 5-6 years by then, and there had been a lot of Doom style games come out, so maybe they were relishing something new. And like, you know, for all the giving out we do about the objective system, I guess it's a bit more dynamic to go and hack a door and blow up a wall than like just find a green key card and open the green door, even though essentially it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the world building and like the atmosphere and stuff like that, maybe that all tied into why it was so generously received at the time. But yeah, looking at it with 2023 glasses, like Joanna has, because she's living in 2023, it definitely it doesn't hold up at all. And like, if the point of this is like to see where games land through modern eyes and to see if we can recommend a game for people to go back and play it, I definitely can't recommend this one. This is a bit of a spoiler, but next week or next episode we'll be talking about Metroid Prime, and that will be a game that I will definitely say can be recommended to anyone at this time. Can't say that about Perfect Dark. Yeah, sorry, I like Metroid Prime.
Oh, I'm just looking up here. GoldenEye is actually 28 on the list.
Yeah, so we'll be at it soon. Like again, I'm just looking up like on IMDb just some random facts about Perfect Dark. Do you know apparently there was going to be a hidden piece of Swiss cheese in every level with a mega cheat activated if all the cheese was found, but it was scrapped in the final version.
If they'd only put that in, I think I would have liked the game.
That would have fixed it. Like, honestly, I'm also looking at, there's a few of like Elvis's quotes, and they kind of sum up like the general type of humor they're going for, like in how cringy it is. My favorite, like, probably being like, I have a headache, and with a head this big, that's no joke.
You killed Sean.
Yeah, but like it's I had a bad time with this game, and like every game I've played so far, like I've like probably a game that I felt like was kind of dated, but obviously not this bad, was Grand Theft Auto 4 when we played that. Like I felt like there was some mechanics in there that had dated a bit, but I was like, oh, it's still enjoyable enough. Like it's a little awkward, but still very playable. This, it's not unplayable, but it's approaching that line. It's definitely approaching it.
Yeah, like literally the only reason I finished it was I felt one of us should finish the game. But yeah, it was just a slog to get through, and the last level isn't great as well. It's pretty annoying. There's invisible enemies, and God, I didn't even tell you, on the last level, you have to, like I said, you have to blow up these alien artifacts in their like religious temple or whatever. So there's like 3 you have to blow up in that last level, but there's more than 3 artifacts on the level. And if you blow up one that isn't the correct one, it's an instant fail on the level for some random reason. And the artifacts that you have to blow up change. They randomize every time you restart the level. So you have to go to each artifact and scan it and then blow it up. And the fucked up thing is, you only get 3 explosives. That's the reason you fail the level. So if you use one without it blowing up an artifact, you fail the level because you can't blow it up with your rocket launcher or whatever. If you throw one and it doesn't land correctly on the fucking artifact, then that's another fail for the mission. So it was just an absolute slog to get through, and then you have a boss fight at the end that's pretty awkward as well.
Man,
so
imagine that level in a speed run.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
That's terrible. I think the key thing, I think that might be like the main issue here, and maybe the reason that people like have such high regard for this, is like, this is possibly the best shooter that the N64 had. Like, I personally don't agree with that, because like I had Quake for the N64 and that played way better than this. But like maybe I don't think just because it's the best, in quotes, game that you have for a system like of a certain genre, that doesn't make a good game.
No.
Like,
yeah,
and
exactly.
like shooters in general on the N64 weren't really great. And I just don't think that's something people were really willing to accept, because you can't really have like Nintendo, which at the time was like the biggest video game corporation in the world, and they can't do a good shooter. Like, that's just something that would be unacceptable. So
yeah, the weird thing is the 64 had a great version of Doom 64, which is like an amazing
great
game. But obviously maybe there was a feeling, well, it got good reviews, but maybe there was a feeling that, this style of game is becoming outdated now, and which is weird, because now in 2023 we're in like a resurgence of boomer shooters, is what they call, with like stuff like Dusk and like the newer Dooms and stuff like that, and people are really wanting that, I just go in and shoot a load of guys and like the gunplay feels really good. That's enough for me. I don't need all this other shite.
Yeah, I mean, like, there is a part of them that are kind of like, it's a mindless shooter in a way, which is kind of like what you want after, you know, a long day of work and stuff. You can just chill out and fucking kill some things. You know, you don't have to use your brain too much.
You're saying a lot about yourself now, Sean. But
yeah, I am, and I'm not ashamed, to say that.
Loud and proud. There's dozens of us.
Listen, there's a time for fucking Civilization 6, and then there's a time for Doom Eternal. Okay,
after work being that time. Yeah. Fair. So I guess to sum it up, guys, that we don't rate this game, if that wasn't abundantly clear from what we're saying. And it's pretty ridiculous that it has this position on the list. We can understand at the time why, because of GoldenEye and because of the way people thought about games at that time. And it's very easy for us to look back and laugh, but maybe, you know, fucking in 20 years.
If you were back then and like your options were limited, do you know what I mean? You probably would have played the shit out of this, like.
Yeah,
but
true.
you know, yeah, just looking back now, it's like, well, there's so many other games I'd rather play.
I meant to ask actually, did you guys play the remastered version, or what version?
I played
did you play?
the 360 version, I guess.
It's like I'd call it a soft remaster in that it's
just textures, isn't it?
It's just textures are updated a bit, and like it didn't look horrible, but it also didn't look great. It was pretty murky, like I was saying. Like it's hard to tell what to do on each level. I also played a little bit of its sequel, Perfect Dark Zero. Which was a 360 game. So this is when Microsoft bought Rare, so they obviously got the license for Perfect Dark. I played a bit of it, and it seemed like they'd bolted on the Halo sort of control scheme onto the game, which meant like the shooting was a little better, but overall, from what I played of it, it just wasn't great. Like there were some stealthy sections on it, they just do not work. And because it had that sort of more Halo-y controls. I loved the Halo games, but it didn't. I almost sort of missed the faster paced, floaty style when I was playing, because it was a bit more like stop and aim your crosshair sort of thing, rather than like you're saying, Sean,
just running,
strafing around guys and stuff like that. Which I think there's the potential for a really good Perfect Dark game. They're making a new one, so maybe there will be, but.
Is that a remake of the original though?
I
think it is.
Think so,
or a reboot anyway.
But it's almost like the Capcom Resident Evils, where they remake it from the ground up rather than just being like a texture refit.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Thank God is right. So I'll be interested to see what that's like. But the weird thing is, I had been really looking forward to playing this game because I heard about it for years, and a lot of people saying it's better than GoldenEye.
Wow.
But it'll be interesting when we get to GoldenEye whether I think it's aged better than this.
Yeah.
I just to give like a little sneak preview on my opinion on that, because like I remember I played GoldenEye like relatively recently, like maybe 3-4 years ago, and like it was the first time I played it from start to finish, like in the main campaign and a bit of the multiplayer as well. I think Perfect Dark is definitely going for something more complicated, more complex, a lot of like interesting systems implemented. But GoldenEye definitely benefits from a much simpler objective. Like a lot of the time, it is usually very clear what you have to do in each level, and it usually boils down to shoot the bad man. So
that's all we want.
Usually works. Yeah, exactly. We just want to shoot bad men. Like, well, maybe actually that's maybe I'm going to roll that back a little bit. But because I brought this up to a few people here saying I was playing this and I hated it, and like everyone was like, really, seriously? So if anyone's kind of feeling like, oh, these guys don't know what they're talking about, do yourself a favor, go back and try it again and just see if you genuinely still feel the way like you think you do, because you might just have like rose tinted spectacles there.
Yeah, take the nostalgia glasses off and try it for a minute. I think it's really good that we hadn't played this when we were younger as well, to have a bit more of an objective look on it. I did play GoldenEye at the time when it came out, and mostly the multiplayer back in the day on the N64. And like, because I don't think I'd ever played a multiplayer first-person shooter before then. Like I was like 7 years old or whatever, and it was so much fun. Like it was a lot of fun to play with your mates. But yeah, I think you might be right, Steve, that like a more simplified approach to the objectives would make it more enjoyable. And like I said about the pause menu music, just having that James Bond atmosphere might be good, because like one thing we alluded to is Perfect Dark's really cheesy and really like its tone is all over the place, whereas like with James Bond you've got a bit more of a grounding for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, guys, sorry for any Perfect Dark fans that we might have insulted, and
if you did like it, let us know in the comments. Like, what was your favorite or worst aspect of the game?
Our ears are wide open. We'll take whatever you want to put into them. Well,
come at us, you pricks.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw it to Steve to tell us what's on the next episode.
Well, you already said it earlier in the podcast, but just to remind everyone, the next episode we will be playing the classic Metroidvania, Metroid Prime.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
that'll be a spicier one than this.
One thing I just noticed actually, because I was looking at the list, is that Metroid Prime Remastered is also on the list, but like way further down. But I guess that doesn't really matter, does it? We'll just kind of lump them all in one.
I think we'll do them in one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, if they did a remaster of Donkey Konga, like, I just play that one, like...
Wow, right
there
at the
he
end.
goes, man.
Yeah.
He's like, shit, I have to get this in.
That is literally what it was.
I haven't done my homework. All right.
I would love for him to do a remaster of Donkey Konga, lads. That'd be class.
I wonder where it is on this list, if we will. Do you know, it'd be funny if we got to it and then just talked about a different game and didn't mention Donkey Konga at all.
Rugrats in Paris. There you go.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Remember to give us a like and a share, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Good luck.